What is up, everybody? Welcome to Shout, a Buffalo football podcast. We are coming to you live from Dorado, right here on Park Avenue in Rochester. Ryan, we're 10 minutes away from where the Buffalo Bills just wrapped up training camp. Today, it's always an emotional day when the Bills wrap up camp for players, for coaches, for fans. It's so cool to get to Rochester and just kind of hang out here for 2 weeks, experience all the great nightlife, restaurants, obviously the Pittsburgh Dairy, which I'm probably going to hit before we get out of town here in a few minutes. But we got a lot to talk about because this is our camp wrap-up show. We got to get into the nitty-gritty of which Bills players really stood out, which maybe didn't perform as well, and just talk about our overall observations from this training camp.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Rochester's a great place, Matt. Players love it, fans love it, you name it. I love Dorado. Glad to be here tonight. But you saw Bills players today. They're going out, getting one last milkshake, going out to Bar Bill one last time. Deion Dawkins behind the bar today. So they enjoy just as much as we do here in Rochester.
We are obviously coming to you from the great Dorado here, but we're brought to you as always by Amtrak, which offers frequent departures daily from Niagara Falls, Buffalo, all the way to New York City. No middle seats, plenty of legroom, free Wi-Fi, and no baggage fees. Riding Amtrak is an experience, a fun and relaxing way to get to your destination. We got a super chat in the live comments right here from Mark, who was going to be here today, but he's a little bit under the weather. Hey, Matt and Ryan, miss being there. What was your biggest take from training camp? High points and low points. And he's got to give his prediction, of course. We were talking to one of our insiders here today about the fact that Mark predicted 13-4 on the money last year right here at Dorado.
Yeah, he was perfect prediction. What does he have for this year? Did he have something in there again?
He said 14 wins for the Bills.
It's going to happen this year for him. Okay. I love it. Yeah, Mark is a dedicated Shout fan. Hope you're feeling better soon.
All right, so before we get into the winners and losers from training camp, and that's a little bit dramatic, right? Like we don't really need to call them losers, but just maybe guys that have more work to do over the next couple of weeks as preseason kind of gets rolling here. I want to start with James Cook because there's been a lot that's happened even in the last 24 hours around his hold in. We talked to Sean McDermott before practice today, and the idea was, hey, maybe there's a chance that he could practice. And, Sean talked about like the expectation is that everybody's going to be out there at practice. And I got the sense that maybe the communication just wasn't there today. And I think there's probably a level of frustration on both sides. Like James Cook wants a new contract. His representatives have been very open about the fact that he deserves what he deserves. You saw Kyron Williams come out, get the contract extension a couple days ago, which probably is going to move the needle a little bit. I asked Josh Allen today about what it means to him to be there for James Cook as he's kind of going through this thing. And he said, listen, don't get it twisted. We want him out there. But a lot of people don't understand the business side of things. Sometimes it's a challenge in getting what you want, generational wealth for a player. I mean, you got to prioritize that. And James Cook's trying to do both things. He's trying to prioritize that and get his money. It's a difficult balancing act.
There's so many layers to it, Matt, too, and you have to protect yourself if you're a player in that situation. You look at Rashawn Slater. I mean, he just signed a 4-year, $113 million contract about 1 month ago, goes down today with a season-ending injury. Going to be put on the injured reserve. But he was able to get that generational wealth. Now, running backs aren't going to be getting contracts quite like that, but he's looking for that first payday after his rookie deal. So staying healthy at a camp where so many Bills players have gone down is probably high priority.
I also think like if you're projecting when this could end and when James Cook could get back, it wouldn't surprise me necessarily if they keep on working and you hope that from a Bills fan's perspective, the conversations keep happening. Maybe they continue to kind of work closer to the number, the magic number, whatever that ends up being on the Bills sides of thing. But if this lasts all the way up into the start of the regular season, how surprised would you be?
I wouldn't be overly surprised. It's something where I'm guessing they're finagling on, guarantees, maybe just bumping him up slightly above Williams in the yearly average. Those are the conversations that still need to be had and worked out and ironed out. But at the same time, what seems easy to us on the outside can take a few weeks to get done.
I do sense there's like when you take the temperature of the fan base, where people stand on James Cook, a lot of people saying just trade him or he doesn't have the right mindset or he's not fitting into the culture. And I hesitate to get there because, listen, he shows up and he says all the right things to start training camp. He obviously starts this hold in a week after that. But I do think this is probably painful for him because of how much he wants to try to make a run at a Super Bowl. But this time is offering the last chance for him to make a statement, try to get the Bills to maybe move a little bit and see if they can't come to an agreement.
Yeah, you're right. The last stand is the perfect term for this because before you know it, the regular season begins. He's not going to want to rack up fines. He wants to kind of try to get this across the finish line. Based on what some of the NFL insiders are saying, they're close. They're not that far apart. So maybe this hold-in will end up benefiting, the Bills, James Cook. And let's be honest, for every fan saying trade him, get rid of him, outside of Josh Allen, he was their best offensive weapon last year.
If we're talking about the biggest winners of training camp, I'd have to say that Ray Davis is among them, right? Because of the opportunity that's created with James Cook out of the mix. And I think, Ray Davis has really done well for himself in terms. Is that funny?
I like it. You just merge them together.
He's gotten a lot of action. I've talked about the limitations of his game, especially in the passing game at times. But I think what we've seen over the course of training camp is guys around the locker room on offense. Spencer Brown, probably the most recent example of it, comes out and basically says, we believe in Ray Davis. We believe in Ty Johnson. They think that they have the best third down back in the league in Johnson. And Ray Davis is like a bottle of untapped potential, right? Like there's so much in the tank in terms of what we could see from him. I want to see him a little bit more productive. That's what I'm going to be looking for throughout the preseason. Ray Davis is going to get a ton of opportunities. He's got to stay healthy. He nicked up his leg a little bit in practice yesterday. He still participated, didn't miss today. Obviously tough as nails, and that's something that the Bills are looking for. But if we're talking about big winners just from a place on the depth chart with James Cook not practicing right now, Ray Davis is a big one.
Davis absolutely is up there. And, opportunities were limited for him as a rookie because of James Cook's success scoring touchdowns, the receiving yards. But when he had those opportunities in a game that Cook didn't play, he was outstanding. He made some big plays as that number 2 running back. And even when the Bills kind of went with Ty Johnson late in the year as more than just a third down back, you still saw Davis make the most of his opportunities. But now you're looking at him and saying, man, you don't want to see him work too much in the preseason, but you might want to ramp him up a little bit in case week 1 comes and they're still at this stand. Uh-oh.
We got some tricky microphones the last couple of shows. For some reasons, every once in a while it mutes us. So we talk about the first winner. Let's go to like maybe a loser here in training camp. Why don't you start off with that?
Yeah, and you're right. I hate to use the word loser, but a player that I had high expectations for coming into training camp was Derek Forrest. Safety signed from the Washington Commanders. 2022, last time he really played and was given a lot of runway. I thought he played very well. Injury takes place. Coaching regime takes place. Doesn't play as much the last 2 seasons. But you look at the Bills in this training camp, and you have Taylor Rapp missing time, Cole Bishop missing a ton of time. You would think that this would be a great opportunity for Derek Forrest, and he just didn't really make much noise, Matt. You saw Damar Hamlin, Cam Lewis, even a rookie like Jordan Hancock get a little bit more run than Forrest.
So I was kind of driving a little bit of the hype train on Derek Forrest throughout the offseason. Just hearing what everybody out of Washington said about this kid, I thought, okay, this kind of reminds me of Jordan Poyer a couple years ago, right? Somebody that maybe didn't have an opportunity in his previous stop, come in here. I know that there's 2 technically projected starters, but again, we're seeing the problems with Taylor Rapp and Cole Bishop in terms of counting on them. We get to the end of training camp here, and already Taylor Rapp's going to miss the next week. Cole Bishop is ramping up from a hamstring injury, and he's been out for the last week. There's serious concerns about the availability and consistent ability to stay on the field for both of your projected starting safeties. And now I look ahead to the next 3 preseason games, and I look at, is this an opportunity for Derek Forrest, who maybe worked out the kinks a little bit over the last couple of weeks of training camp? Could he take maybe a little bit of a disappointing training camp and turn it into a really positive preseason period where he could start to make some noise and maybe even move into a conversation? But a side note to this, and we could caveat it with a winner, Damar Hamlin, again, is a big winner throughout training camp. Sean McDermott said he's been outstanding throughout all of training camp. This is the guy that a lot of Bills fans want to kind of, write him out of the story.
Right.
And he continually comes back and finds a way to make himself a part of the conversation. He's had another great camp, and I talked to him a week ago just to the way that he's going about things, the way that he's settled into the job, the way that he's settled into understanding his role, understanding the fact that he's kind of got to work for it and he's willing to do it, he's in a really good spot. And if he's starting safety on day one against Baltimore, I wouldn't be surprised. And I know a lot of Bills fans don't want to hear that.
Yeah, no. And last note on Forrest, I will say maybe a little bit behind the 8 ball versus Hamlin versus Cam Lewis because he's new to the system, new to the terminology. Those two have been here. But when you see Hancock getting a little bit more run, a rookie, that's where you get a little concerned. But preseason will be a great opportunity for him to possibly make some noise, state his case. But Damar Hamlin, fantastic camp, knows the ins and outs of the system. You know the ceiling, you know the floor. He's not going to just emerge this year some all-pro type player, but he's well trusted by Sean McDermott, Bobby Babbage. He's always going to be in the right spot.
So we're out here at Dorado, right here on Park Avenue, as everybody enjoys their Thursday night in Rochester. Our guy Ryan, the manager here, brought us out a couple of different margaritas. This is the blood orange margarita and is absolutely sensational. I didn't eat the food yet, but just starting from the drinks, I can't wait till we're done so I can kind of dive into this menu.
Yeah, I got here early, had some food off the menu, phenomenal carne asadas. But yeah, now we have a cantaloupe margarita and a blood orange margarita. Really excited about them.
Where do you want to go next?
You know, maybe
next big winner for you.
Next big winner. Can I name 2 people or no?
Relax, Talbot. Why do you got to go like one at a time here?
Right.
Like one at a time.
I will go Dalton Kincaid.
Okay.
Dalton Kincaid 1 year ago had probably expectations that were too high from the national media, from the local media too. After the Stephon Diggs, parting of ways, Dalton Kincaid was supposed to be the guy, and he looked like it at times during the spring and during training camp. It never came to fruition. The chemistry seemed a little bit off. Obviously, he was dealing with an injury in his knee that limited him and cost him some mobility. This summer, the chemistry looks off the charts with Josh Allen. With all the injuries at wide receiver, it would not shock me at all if he played a huge role in this offense very early in this season.
The thing with Dalton Kincaid for me has been you go through a full training camp or some of these practices and you just start to wonder, okay, I've gone 3 or 4 days and I haven't noticed him enough. Mm-hmm. And what I think the big difference of this training camp was it felt like every day or every other day, there was consistent production from Dalton Kincaid, working on the chemistry with Josh Allen. Josh Allen looking for him every day in practice, whether it be at the start of practice or sometime throughout it, to get him going. He made a couple of big plays. Obviously, we mentioned him on the podcast yesterday. He's going to be so important to what they do. You know, in terms of getting Dawson Knox on the field with him, or when they just go 11 personnel with just Dalton Kincaid on the field, he's got to stay healthy. But every time he's been on the field, I will say, I don't want to get anybody worried, but there, yesterday, might have been today actually, he kind of was off to the side, getting his foot off, and one of the trainers was looking at him. He came back on the field. He finished practice. Whenever that happens, though, you start to worry because that's one of the things with him that it gets everybody a little bit nervous. But when he's on the field this entire training camp long, you're right, big winner.
Yeah, absolutely. High expectations for Kincaid.
All right, so next up, let's go to a player that maybe has some work to do. Maybe somebody that maybe didn't, I don't want to say maybe a loser, but somebody that we really ratchet up expectations for this player in the spring. And we get to the summer, and I get a lot of insider text sending me like, hey, where's an update on Elijah Moore? What's going on with Elijah Moore? The big problem is like he's been out there. He's been involved. He's had a couple of catches here and there. It's mostly been in the short passing game. But the big problem for him is it's just like it feels like Josh Allen is specifically over the course of camp looking for Kincaid and looking for Keon Coleman. And so when you have that, when you're really working to those targets, Tyrell Shavers had his own one big day of training camp. We're just waiting for that day for Elijah Moore. Maybe it hasn't come yet, but in terms of the expectations when we started, he missed a couple of days of practice as well. It just hasn't been what I think a lot of Bills fans were hoping for in training camp.
And, before training camp took place, you really saw some great practices from Elijah Moore, but that was unpadded. That is where speed players thrive. Now he's got to show it during the preseason that he is going to be someone that you can count on to be a contributor week in and week out. Obviously, the talent is there. You saw that him put up some decent stats the last 2 years in Cleveland. I still think he's going to end up being a solid contributor for the team, but you're right. Didn't necessarily meet the expectations at camp.
So if we're setting up a little bit of a sidebar here, if we're setting up the Receivers that are definitely going to make this roster. So you got Keon Coleman, Josh Palmer, and Khalil Shakir.
Right.
They're in the locked compartment. Do you put Curtis Samuel in that bucket right now? What do you think could be a outcome where he doesn't make the team? Because I think the idea that we talked about before training camp of trading Curtis Samuel, I don't think it holds up anymore because I don't know who's going to trade for that contract knowing the availability concerns.
So it's funny you mentioned this. I did a radio spot with Danger and Battaglia today before coming here, and we talked about Curtis Samuel. And I said, I think if the Bills were to be able to trade him, you would essentially – I see that. You would
Think about that.
protein. You would essentially
would you so there's a little mosquito or bug in my drink. Would you just keep drinking it?
power through, Parrino.
You would just power through it?
Power through.
All right, go ahead.
Well, not that. No, I'm saying get it out and now power.
You said
through.
it's protein.
It
Go
is. I already had my protein. But I said you'd almost have to move him along with like let's just say a day 3 pick, a 5th rounder to get like a future 7th or something like that, right, where you entice the team that has cap space, take on that salary, help us, then the Bills are essentially moving him for cap space.
Okay, so let's put him in the bucket of most likely going to make the team because Joe Brady connection, the fact that it's just too costly. Okay. Sure. Beyond that, we got to come up with the 5th guy. And I think a lot of people probably are sitting there saying, well, even if Elijah Moore's had a quiet camp, he's still going to make the roster. Are you there with Elijah Moore and do you have him locked in as that 5th?
I do right now have him locked in as that 5th. As good as Tyrell Shavers has been late in camp, flashes from some other players as well. I just think that Moore brings the most to the table in terms of proven talent and ability that they have on this roster.
The other problem beyond that, as the Bills try to run through this decision-making process, is Tyrell Shavers has been arguably, the biggest surprise of training camp. Somebody that has been on the roster a while, but everybody who talks about him, from Sean McDermott, Joe Brady, Josh Allen, it's about like this trust level that they have in him. And to me, it's screaming he's going to make a run at this roster. If he has a really strong preseason, he's probably going to be in the mix. So who would then be the odd man out? Can he beat out Elijah Moore? What about Laviska Shenault? What about KJ Hamler? Both of them are listed behind Brandon Codrington in the punt and kick return battle. How do they kind of shake this all out, in your opinion?
Yeah, so I think if they end up keeping Tyrell Shavers, it would be as the number 6 wide receiver, which is not something that they have typically done. They have traditionally gone with 5 receivers the last few years. So you would almost have to find another spot elsewhere where you'd be comfortable going one man down. I know they have the suspensions that you'd think that would free up a spot for someone like that, but you would think you have to keep an extra D tackle and D end to replace Michael Hoyt and Larry Ogunjobi. So it's roster gymnastics. I just don't think that necessarily he would be replacing one of those other receivers like Elijah Moore. I think it would come elsewhere in terms of how they would make that up.
All right, we got a ton of people watching right now live on YouTube. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel as well. Every time we go live, you will get a notification. We're here at Dorado, Park Avenue in Rochester. The Bills wrapped up training camp a couple hours ago. We're giving you our full recap from training camp here at Dorado. Next up, big winner. Got a shout out from the quarterback today, Josh Allen. Matt Milano, to me, was one of the big question marks, so much so that I was pushing an agenda going into camp about Dorian Williams potentially taking over that role from Matt Milano. I'm not having that conversation anymore. Matt Milano pretty much shut me up over the course of the last couple of weeks. I think Matt Milano looks like the old version of Milano. I think he's ready to be the playmaker they need him to be. It's just now about getting to week 1, staying healthy, and being able to go out there and make plays behind what I think everybody is pretty excited about this defensive line.
Yeah. Again, Bobby Babich said it so well last weekend, Matt. He said, Matt's great. He just needs to stay healthy. You can't summarize it any better than that. Matt Milano on the field, when healthy, is still playing at an extremely high level. Is it the elite level that we saw very early in his career? Maybe not, but it's still Pro Bowl caliber type of level. So staying healthy is the key, not just for him, but for that entire linebacker room where we've seen, Terrell Bernard miss some time. Nice. I don't know if this is like a jogging club or someone robbed a bank, but we just had a bunch of people run right by us, so I'm a little concerned here. But, sorry, I lost my train of thought seeing that. But the whole linebacker group in general, it's about staying healthy because all 3 of the top 3 have missed some time this summer.
All right. I want to go quickly to another big winner. And obviously, all right, maybe I'm going to steal your thunder here.
I don't think you will.
To me, it comes at in a sad situation because you never want to see a guy get hurt, especially a rookie player like Maxwell Hairston, who obviously good news, right? Like it could have been season ending. They're expecting him to be back sometime around the start of the regular season. But to me, Trey White, whether or not that injury happened, is a massive winner this preseason or this training camp because I think what he's done is he's proven there's still the potential of the ceiling that he showed back in 2020, 2021, before the two injuries really took a lot away from him in his career. He has looked like the version of Trey, which, by the way, if he's 70 or 80% of the guy that was an all-pro back in 19, opposite Christian Benford, who I think is one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL.
Pretty good deal.
Now you're talking about a real good duo. And, oh, by the way, you can kind of bring Maxwell Hairston along, maybe even do a little bit of a rotation so you don't have to wear Tre'Davious White out over the course of the season.
Yeah, and Trey White, huge winner this summer. And I said anyone that watched Hard Knocks that wasn't a Bills fan, I don't know how you leave that episode not rooting for this guy to have a phenomenal season with the injury history. First year that he's had in a while where he didn't have to rehab anything. And he talked about all the work that he put in to kind of return to that form of the Trey White of old. And it has shown this summer at training camp, running the sprints up the hill in full pads after practice. He's made play after play. Couldn't be happier for Trey White.
All right, I'm going to get to your other big winner, but before we do, we got to talk about maybe one of the duds of training camp, and I hate to say that, but Mitch Trubisky, going into training camp, we were talking so much about QB2 and the fact that there was a battle, and I think all that we've seen over the course of training camp is Mike White make big plays, and I think put all of the pressure now on Trubisky over the next couple of weeks. One of the things I thought was interesting hearing Josh talk about the quarterbacks room today is like he talks about Mitch the same way he talks about Mike White and the same way he talks about Shane Buechele. So if you were to cut Mitch and tell Josh Allen that Mike White's going to be your backup, I don't think as much as he's going to miss Mitch Trubisky, he likes Mike White so much, I don't think it's going to be a huge problem.
No, they have a great rapport, great relationship. I know Trubisky is one of his best friends, but I don't think that's going to factor into the decision whatsoever. I don't think it would affect Josh Allen at all. And, you know, going into this preseason game on Saturday, Mitch Trubisky gets to play with the starters. And Sean McDermott said the starters will play, some of them will play up to about a quarter in this game against the Giants. He needs to play a very good brand of football in this quarter, because if you get Mike White coming in, yes, I get it. He's going against the second team Giants defense most likely, but he has the second team weapons most likely. If he comes in and outperforms him, that might even seal the deal just after one preseason game, because I think Mike White left training camp slightly ahead of Trubisky right now.
I almost feel like the Bills are choosing to go with Trubisky to maybe put a little pressure on him, because I think Mike White is going to have his opportunity next game. I would imagine they'd start him, depending on what they do with Josh Allen in Chicago, coming off of the joint practice next week, which, by the way, I'll be in Chicago to bring you everything from so training camp is over in a way, but that joint practice, we're going to have a ton of reaction and insight from that. So there's still a little piece of training camp left.
Oh, 100%. Still plenty to, look at, especially like you said, joint practice. We really get to look at how they practice against another team leading up to a preseason game. It's almost ramped up more in that joint practice than it is in the preseason game, because the latter is more about evaluating these players that you're trying to decide if you're going to keep them on your 53-man roster or practice squad.
All right, I'm going to get to your other big winner, but before we get there, update on Khalil Shakir today I thought was very encouraging. Sean McDermott said from what he's been told by trainers, the expectation is that he's back for week 1, which I think tells you the level to which that injury, of the severity of that injury, which is lower. The real bad ones, I mean, they might have put a week 4, week 5 kind of designation on that, and I think the fact that he could be back by week 1 tells you that he's already doing some stuff off to the side. One doctor on social media doctors, you always got to take their word for it.
Love them.
Said that it means something that he's doing the plyo drills while being able to put weight on that right foot, which I think tells you where he's at. It seems like the Bills are very much confident that he'll be ready to go by week 1.
And that's massive, because no receiver has better chemistry than Khalil Shakir with Josh Allen. As much as we saw significant growth with Keon Coleman and tight end Dalton Kincaid, we know that these two, Allen and Shakir, are always on the same page. Shakir doesn't drop anything. He's that reliable target. So you need a player like that available week 1 against Baltimore.
All right. It's better deliver.
I'm
Give me the
going,
big winner.
I'm going deep down. This is not a play, and this is not a player I expect to make the 53-man roster. So
Wow.
It seems weird to call him a winner. Jacob Bayer, though.
Okay.
Center. Really made the most of his opportunities with Cedric Van Pran Granger missing some time. Really fared well in a lot of the one-on-one matchups. Came out of nowhere, in my opinion. A UDFA was not high on my radar going into training camp. I was very impressed with his play to the point now where I would be shocked if he's not on their practice squad.
I like Bayer a lot. I also think Feeney coming out.
Go ahead.
Do it.
You said you wanted to do it.
No, I'm not going to do it in front of all these people. That's inappropriate, Ryan. Don't even suggest that. But no, I think Bayer's had himself a really good camp, especially just in terms of impressing in the one-on-ones, which is where I think a player like that can really gain some confidence in the eyes of some coaches. It's probably a practice squad spot. Alec Anderson is probably going to be back by the start of the regular season. Van Pran Granger, Sean said maybe around the Tampa Bay game. Right. So both those guys will probably be in the mix, but who knows? I mean, there could be a scenario where Van Pran Granger gets back or is close, but they decide to maybe redshirt him and put him on IR, or maybe pup him to or move him over to IR for those first 4 weeks. We'll see what goes from there. Do you got another big loser?
No one off the top of my head, because a lot of the other ones that lost opportunities was due to injury, and that's not their fault.
One more winner. I think we can talk about him being a winner, even though like the expectation is that he'd win. Christian Benford. Yeah, I think that coming off of last season, if you go back and think about the Kansas City Chiefs game and how bad things got in the secondary once he went out of the game, I think there was a sense around the league that, okay, maybe he doesn't get enough respect. And Josh Allen even said it today that maybe he doesn't get enough respect. He's forced everybody to put some respect on his name throughout this entire training camp. At times, shutting down Keon Coleman, battling with Josh Palmer, having battles with every wide receiver across the Bills depth chart. And you might push back a little bit and say, well, there's some concerns with the depth on the Bills wide receiving room, but everybody that he's faced, he's absolutely shut down. And I don't know how you can have a show like this and not mention 47.
No, and the advanced stats and analytics the last few years also back up how much of a lockdown corner he has been. And you look at this summer, the Bills realized his value with that contract extension, and he's come into training camp and looked the part of a cornerback one for sure. So really excited to see what he looks like this season.
All right, we got our good buddy who came out today. We're reversing roles. Usually, get right in the middle here, buddy. Usually, I'm coming on your podcast at some type of live event, but you're kind enough to come out here and join me. Pat Moran, talking Buffalo. You're in the house today. How you doing, buddy?
Good, dude. I like this city, but can we talk about the parking here that's going on?
So what's funny is Ryan, the owner here, told me get down there and check on your parking right now because you got to flip over to the other side of the street at 7:00. Luckily, I was already parked on the right side of the street, so I didn't have to move it. But sorry if you had to.
I went from a half a block to literally 4.5 blocks over there. I got my steps in for the week in the last 20 minutes or so here. Beautiful place, though. This is an awesome spot.
Yeah. It really is an awesome spot. Ryan, why don't you give him your microphone so I don't have to jam this thing in his face. All right, so give us you obviously put out a podcast earlier today. I think you're working on uploading it right now. What was your biggest takeaway? Not only you were here multiple days, just from training camp as a whole, that maybe either shifted a take that you had before camp or something that reaffirmed something that you had going into this thing?
Well, in terms of biggest winners at camp, I know this is going to be the most obvious thing ever, but Josh Allen is a big winner because we already know what he could do. But what you saw at camp over the last couple of weeks is Keon Coleman, Dalton Kincaid, improved, hungry, determined, and you can see that on the field. Josh Palmer, I think, is a good weapon, and you can see that chemistry developing. You got Joe Brady, who now has another year of experience. So I think, last year, as great as Josh was, one of the best arguments for him winning MVP is what was around him. And I feel like this year, even if it's not a bunch of different players, it's players that are ascending, or at least it looks like at camp that they're ascending. You saw today, there was not a lot to really see today, like literally not a lot at all. But one of the things that I really enjoyed watching was every single ball that Josh Allen threw to Dalton Kincaid, every drill, whether it was a 5-yard out, a seam route, and out, whatever it may be, precision, perfect.
Right.
It just looks fluid. And Dalton Kincaid gave you a one-day scare, but yeah, him and Keon Coleman have had a really good camp. I mean, a couple of mistakes here and there, but I think the weapons are better around him this year. And again, a offensive coordinator with another full year of experience.
I know we were talking about, I think it was on your show, I can't remember who it was with, at one point in the offseason, about how high I was on Keon, despite a lot of the detractors thinking that the Bills kind of screwed up that pick and he's never going to hit the kind of ceiling that some of these other young wide receivers have hit. I don't know what your take on it was, but how much of your perception of him changed based on this training camp? And I know you don't want to overreact to it because they're practices at the end of the day. I mean, you got to go out there and do it in the game when teams are maybe game planning to take you out. But I think like setting up right now, I feel good about how bullish I was on him a month ago.
The things he does really good right now compared to last year, he does more often. He does it more consistent this year. The things that he's got to work on, he still has to work on. But the things that he's really good at, improvising routes, tough catches, contested catches, high pointing the ball, things like that, he's doing it with more consistency. I mean, you still got the drops, and I feel like you're going to be dealing with that for his entire career. I don't know if he's ever going to be a complete, totally polished receiver, but the things that he's doing good a lot more consistently now than he was a year ago. You know what's funny is I always tell you to eat these mics on my show, and I'm sitting there, I'm realizing, I'm like, this needs to be up more, but yeah.
You really need to eat the mics because for some reason, these ones don't pick up if you're too far away from the omnidirectional ones. He's a real audio nerd. Like every time I come on his show, after we're done filming it, he is literally sitting on his computer for like 30 minutes, just making sure that it sounds right. I'm like, dude, we just did it. Like we used the microphones. We're good. Post it already, but you're a bit of a perfectionist. Also, how do you feel about being on the other side of this thing where I'm asking you stuff?
It's different. I don't like it. I don't like it. You go both. You're used to it.
Right.
I'm not. I don't like it. I like being the one who controls the narrative of
How about this? How about you ask Ryan something?
I'm ready.
How should I ask Ryan something? Well, I wanted to ask you about the wings. However, you have not had them yet. I'm going to have them after. I'm going to be having them after we do this show. I heard, you know what, on a serious note, Derek Forrest, I heard you talking about him earlier in the show from over there. How surprised are you that you haven't seen more from him? Like even today on the last day of camp, so no Taylor Rapp, no Cole Bishop, you would say, all right, well, Hamlin's going to be out there. And even if Cam Lewis does get the start, you figure Forrest would get a lot of looks, a lot of run. And it's not happening. He's not getting any run at all right now.
Yeah, I'm very surprised. And, I think a part of it obviously has to do with his lack of knowledge or time in this system. But as training camp went on, I thought you'd see him maybe ascend or move up the depth chart a little bit. It just hasn't happened. So to Matt's point, the 3 preseason games are going to be huge for him to make a case for a depth option at safety and a special teams player, because you just named it. They have DeMar Hamlin as a backup. They love Cam Lewis. They have a rookie in Jordan Hancock that they can move all around. Wouldn't shock me if Derek Forrest does not make this initial 53-man roster.
I agree. And by the way, you guys sent me down a bad rabbit hole about a week and a half or so ago. Pittsburgh Dairy. You guys went there. You posted. I've been there 5 times. The last 5 days in a row, I've been to camp. I've went there and had.
You went there every time?
Every single time.
Dude, you got a problem. You got to talk to somebody about this. Every single time?
Every single time. Literally. I was just there I was there having a post-practice shake today, and maybe the highlight of the day. Go ahead.
Oh, you said chocolate shake.
Yeah, I'm basic. Chocolate
milkshake. You have not tried the black raspberry.
I have not. I know that. I'm not a black raspberry guy. Did have the trade day Sunday, or at least a little bit of it. Lauren got it, our friend, earlier. More excitement there than on the field, though, today, by the way. Ed Oliver, Groot, Milano, Menard all showed up there. That's becoming a hot spot. Anyway.
It's been great stuff, man. Dorado, Park Avenue, so kind to host us every single training camp. Ryan, I'm going to give you final thought today, buddy. Send us out of here.
Final thought, training camp at St. John Fisher University is sadly over, but stick with us these next few weeks. There's still tons to talk about as we make our way all the way to the final decisions on the Bills' 53-man roster.
All right, from Dorado, Park Ave in Rochester, training camp. That's a wrap. We'll see you on the next episode of Shout. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, everybody.